UFO Woman show at home edition. I am your host, Melisa Kennedy. So for weeks now, we've been talking about disclosure. We've been talking about universal consciousness and how we can learn and raise ourselves up to the level of our extraterrestrial and intergalactic family. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how disclosure may happen in the near future, in particular ET disclosure. And we have found a video on the internet where a lady was actually talking about possible ET disclosure with Trump in 2021. So I would like to show that video, and then our panel is going to discuss it in further detail and what our thoughts and our ideas are on this subject matter with ET disclosure. So John, let's go ahead and roll that video, please.
Hiya. I'm going to do a video because I did a journey yesterday, and I'm going to share with you all. I just went off. I must have been bored. So I went travelling and ended up outside of the experiment. And who was there was Donald Trump's consciousness. And he gave me a key. And this key led me to the famous room in the White House, and a drawer and a file. And this file was called The End of Days. And in this file was information on contracts with ETs, reptilians and greys to experiment on the American public. And he wants this out in 2021. He wants to expose. So basically he's going to bring ET exposure. That's his intention for next year when he gets in. He said this is a continuation of what JFK was trying to do. And these contracts were made in 1950, I think he said. So he wants to expose all that. His life is very still under danger. There's a lot going on in his emotional life, personal life. He's having a really hard time. I saw him winning the election, and I also saw a serious attempt on his life after he gets in. Now he will survive it, and I don't think they even hit him, but the serious attempt everyone will see it. It's like going to be on TV, but he will be fine. There is going to be like real bumpy rise for the American people economically. Civil unrest basically. I saw lots, but what I did see that there's huge light at the end of the tunnel, that there's going to be I saw Hillary and George Soros, which you know from if you listen to my YouTube videos. They're not real people. They're not real people in those bodies. They're computer AI, and basically I've seen them like diminished, just disappear kind of thing. And I also just saw light, just all this, because it was just all like civil unrest and fires and just darkness, and then it all just turned to light like a switch, which I've seen before in other journeys. When the matrix really just comes down, there's a switch and it just turns gorgeous. So there is a bumpy ride, and it seems that America is the one that's going to have the more of a, it's a B. It's good that I'm not a wimp. More of a harder time, and basically what the advice is that we need to listen to our hearts. Now what I've seen since the whole virus has kicked off, we can either connect with our hearts, and in our hearts that connects to Gaia, and Gaia's happy. She's there's no sort of stress, there's like things going in the right direction, but also to listen to yourself and be where you need to be at that certain time. If people go into fear mode and listen to the media and everything like that, that it's not going to help them. That they need to connect with ourselves, and that's been right from the beginning. This virus, people need to open up their hearts and connect to who they are, and they will be fine. absolutely fine. What else? There was another operation going under California, which we saw on a journey yesterday, where money was being transported. Basically, the military, Hillary, involved of basically stealing the money of the American people, and they were taking it to an island, which was a base for it. And then I need to investigate it more, but it seemed like no one knew about this island. It's not like well known to the public or anything. It's like being deleted off the maps and used as a financial basis of stealing. And then and I'm going to do more on this, because it's where the money's going to, what it's being used for and stuff like that. But Trump is aware of this as well, because basically there's underground like tunnels. There's like an underground like base which they're stealing all this money. Well, they're using it as a, but I saw Trump coming in and stopping it. That man's a busy man. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave you there. Okay, thanks for listening. You take care. Bye.
Well, I find that very interesting because, you know, we've been talking about what it could possibly mean to have ET disclosure. I myself have had a few visions very similar to what this lady was talking about. And so I think the time is now for us to not only bring forth information about UFOs, but certainly our extraterrestrial friends and family that are out there, and how really at this time in this history of the world, I think we probably need something that is hopeful and good and positive, and get our mindsets out of the current negative mindset and more to something positive. So I'm going to open it up to our panel. I've got 3 other people joining us today. Our usual suspects, which is Kevin and Edgar. And then we have Barry Gaunt, dear friend and colleague in the UFO and paranormal community. Good morning, guys. How are you guys?
Fine. Morning.
We're
Good.
How are you doing this morning?
This is our at-home edition. So, Kevin, I'm going to start with you because you're the one that shared the video with us, and I'm so glad you did. Very thankful for that. What are your thoughts on this, Kevin? Just out of the chute here, what do you think about this video?
Okay, well, it really ties in with the information that I've been given by my ETs. And it was interesting that my brother sent me that particular clip, and I watched it, and I sort of identified with it straight away. A couple of years ago, I was actually asked to contact the president himself at the White House by my ETs. Initially, I was asked to contact our United Nations in relation to a mandate protocol, which I did. I contacted the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee, Nicholas Hedman. I did receive a reply, and he did say that there was no protocol in place should advanced extraterrestrials wish to communicate and connect with our governments. I asked him how we would implement such a mandate, and he said that we would have to get a member state to make that mandate proposal for a vote on that. So that's about as far as I got with that. But then my particular ETs asked me to contact the president and ask him directly. And I was very reluctant to do that. It took me about 2 weeks to really get my head around it. And I decided to write to him, outlining the request for this mandate protocol, so the group of 8 ETs can, their ambassadors can meet with our ambassadors here on Earth. And that was in July 29, 2018, my first letter. And then I was asked again by Ra, the lead counsel of the group of 8. He contacted me one Sunday morning. I'd just woken up, and he asked me to contact the president again and follow up. And he also told me that the president didn't receive the first, or didn't read the first letter. So I sent a second letter outlining that. I included a copy of the first letter, a copy of my correspondence to the United Nations, and mailed it off with the same request again. I did get a receipt from the White House to say that they had received the letter. Now, whether he's read it or not, I don't know. And I also included a letter from Dr. Greer, one that he put out there as well. So all the information was there. The request has been made, and then I see this short video from Rebecca from the Find the Light, and she has a Facebook page for those that are interested to follow her. She has, I think, about 4,000 views on that particular video. So that's quite an interest there. And there are many groups working towards this, but it seems unusual. But she's getting the same information, only hers has moved forward into the future. And it would tie in really with the information that I've been given. And March the 2021 would be, I like the numbers 2121. It's a universal number again. So it will be something to work towards. And wouldn't be fascinating. I know we all know that the ETs are here. We don't need evidence. We know that. There are many now in our planet that know the ETs are here, but we need to get it recognised by our governments, and they've been denying this knowledge for decades. So, and my ETs did tell me that the disclosure would come from the people, and they will be contacting more individuals, and perhaps this Rebecca is one of those individuals. So, yeah, exciting times ahead, and let's see where this develops.
Well, before we go any further, I have to mention Kevin's in a spaceship, and I love his background. Oh, Kevin, you are always a barrel of laughs, my friend. That is great. Oh my gosh. Well, Edgar, what's your take on this video?
Well, I think she was spot on the as far as her analogies and her insight, intuitions, because we are the disclosure, and they told us that straight out that, or told me straight out that it is up to us to get the information out, because the governments have lied and have been very deceitful to the intergalactics, bringing us their technologies and stuff, and that their technologies is being used against us as a human race and even as a planet as a whole. And that it's time for us to get the information out, be downloaded the information, and start using the information that they're giving us, because it's the only way that we're going to save humanity.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, and I've been getting very similar downloads and visions myself. In fact, I remember a real vivid one that happened back in February at 3:33 a.m. And they said, you know, Melisa, you got to get prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because they forewarned me. I had a battle ahead of me, and I had a lot of things that were going to present themselves that I needed to be involved in, which is exactly what's happened. And, you know, I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I have been trying to do that. I've been trying to prepare myself for a lot of these things. And you're right, Edgar. I mean, now's the time. All of us are being given information, downloaded. We're being guided. Because I do think it's going to come from the people, and that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, because when the people have a voice and the people take action, usually what happens is something good comes out of it, and I'm certainly hoping that that's the case here, and you know, this doesn't turn into a kind of a violent type thing, but rather a peaceful movement, and we collectively as the human race take into account that there are others out there in the universe that are like-minded, that are peaceful, and they're here to help our planet, because our planet needs help at the moment. And I hope that that's indeed the case. Now, Barry, I hope your audio is working, my friend. I don't know. Say something. I know we were having some technical difficulties.
I hope it's working too. I don't know what we've got here.
Okay.
I hope the Zoom gods are all in a line for this. So I apologize if I'm just mouthing it right now.
So what do you think about ETs and disclosure? Do you think that that's a good thing? Do you think that that should come from the president? What are your thoughts on that, Barry?
Well, let me go back to the video, first of all, okay? The video I find very interesting. because it speaks of her when she talks about contracts and she talks about the things that the government has done in the past, which is actually a true basis based on several of the things that have happened in the past from 1953 to 1954 with the Eisenhower, the Grenada treaty program. And that's basically what she's mentioning, that she's talking about, I think, when she first talks about it, is that we have had alien intervention since the 1950s, and it's continued since then at certain Air Force bases. Could have been at Holloman, Edwards, Homestead, all the way from the 50s, 54. The treaty was supposed to be signed in 54 and had gone all the way through 1971. I think the last one that I've seen is someone that mentioned that there was another meeting that was filmed, and the producer was actually offered that for a show. But going into the ET disclosure part of it, I don't think the government is going to ever disclose it. If they do disclose it, it comes with an agenda, just kind of like what we're seeing right now with a certain UFO group. And as we see it, it comes with this agenda that says it's the alien threat, that they are a problem and they're this way and everything else. Now, when I mentioned going back into that area of the treaty end of it, obviously the treaty was broken. Several different people said that the ETs were not too nice of things, and they started abducting. They were only supposed to abduct a few and give us information, the government, that kind of information on who they were abducting and all that, where and so forth. But the government finds out that they had upped the scale tremendously, and some of the people weren't coming back, and some of the people they were in the millions. It was in the millions of abductees. So they kind of broke that treaty. But going back to disclosure again, when I say that, I think it's going to be up to the abductees themselves. If they all get together in a group and I think every abductee has a piece of the puzzle. And, you talk about downloads, you talk about all this stuff. Those are the people that if you get all together and they decide to work all together, then you're going to find the answers. And that's where you're going to get disclosure. Everything from anything else with disclosure is going to have to be tainted, and because the government cannot. What you talk about an uprising. Do you want to be known that the government lied to you for 50 years and all the terrible things they've done to you? Do you know what's going to, you think there's rioting in the streets now? Think about the rioting that they're going to be that.
That is a good point, and I think that's part of the reason that it hasn't happened yet. I talked about this a little bit last week. This is all a lot trickier than we probably realize because, as you're saying, first of all, they're going to have to basically admit that they have lied to us for the last 80 years. Second of all, who wants to be that guy? Who wants to be the guy that goes down in history as the one that spilled the beans? Although you could look at that from a different light and be like, well, I'm the guy that disclosed, all of this universal knowledge about ETs. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. Third, I think our mindset has to be, and I think we're getting there though, but I think our mindset has to be a little bit different. We've been very controlled with our information and with our thought processes through our education system, through our religions, through our culture. All of that has really downplayed any life on other planets, and in fact actually made it taboo and actually made anybody that talked about it crazy. That's the label that they were given. So we got to get away from the tinfoil hat image, from the 50s that's been kind of, engraved in our minds as to anybody that studies or thinks UFOs exist, they're nuts. So that's a really hard thing to get out of people's minds. I think that's a lot harder than some realize. Because this goes back to, images that we had as children. and thought processes. You know, our parents, our grandparents all taught us that, you know, that doesn't exist. Or, you know, when you were a little kid, you know, we would say there was monsters in the closet or under our bed or whatever. I mean, who's to say that that wasn't paranormal activity? But as soon as we mentioned it to our parents, what did they tell us? Oh, there's no such thing as monsters. You're just making it up, right? So, you know, it's kind of getting out of a one-track mind, really, and getting us into a more open mindset. And I don't think that's real easy. I think we're leaning that way now more than ever, but you got a lot of factors that play into it. And what I'm seeing a real good example of this is right now with the pandemic. I mean, you got this group over here that believes this, and you got this group over here that believes that. And you're not going to sway people's minds too much from one group to the other. It's almost impossible. And it's proven to me how easy it is to brainwash people. That's what it says to me. And so when you take 2 and 3 generations of people that have been brainwashed to think a certain way, I think it's going to take 2 or 3 generations or maybe more to get us to the mindset of actually accepting and encouraging knowledge about intergalactics. That's just my opinion. But no, I think you're right, Barry. I think there's a lot to this. And, you know, whether it's Trump or whatever, but, you know, I think that it's going to take a lot more than just a press release. I don't think this is like, you know how last year in September of 2019, they dropped a little bomb over here saying, oh yeah, that probably, you know, that was probably not of this world. And, you know, they kind of sugarcoated it and padded it really nicely and put a little ribbon around it. But it really wasn't like, I don't know. It really wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a lot more than just what they gave us in September of last year about the whole UFO thing with the military footage. It was nice that there was a little bit of acknowledgement, but it's like, you just teased me with that. You just showed me the trailer. I want the whole movie, you know? But anyway, I don't know. I mean, if it were to happen in 2021, how do you guys think it'll go down? Kevin, I'm going to start with you, my friend. How do you think that would actually happen?
Well, I think that obviously the ETs are looking to connect with our ambassadors here, with their ambassadors, as we would with any country here on our own planet. We have meetings with different countries with their ambassadors, and it's no different with the ETs, other than they come from another planet or another dimension or wherever they come from. But the process is the same. We meet, we talk, we discuss, we compromise, and usually when groups come together, we share information. And I know that the ETs that I speak with are quite willing to share many of their technologies to help with the problems we have with our planet. It's very heavily polluted at the moment. They can assist us with that. They can assist us with technologies, which will help our lifestyle, which will help us become integrated. We will develop spiritually further than we are at the moment and have an understanding of consciousness. I know that we all talk about the different UFO groups that we're all members of, and we all speak within these groups to one another. And there are many, and I speak to them myself, as I'm sure we all do. But beyond the UFO groups are the spiritual groups, and they are huge. Absolutely huge. I mean, one of the leaders we have here in the Western world is Deepak Chopra, and he has a huge following. Millions of people follow him, and he speaks about the ETs openly because it's an extension of our spirituality. It's who we are. It's a way of communicating. One of his good friends, Alan Steinfeld, he promotes it and has been doing so for over most of his life, I think. And Alan actually was the one that nominated me to speak at the United Nations Enlightenment Society. And I know that Alan has his own contact with his own ETs. I met Alan at a conference a year or so ago. So there are many, not just on the UFO side, but the spiritual side as well. So, and when we all get together and we all share this information, then that's where it becomes a open to everybody to understanding it. And for once, Melisa, I'm going to disagree with you. I normally agree with you, but on this occasion, I'm going to disagree. I think when people get the information, and it's reliable information, they will change their opinions. And I have an example of that with my good friend Mash. He was a skeptic all his life. He's retired like me now, retired detective, and he didn't believe anything at all. He just thought it was all just people's imagination. He had no idea about the spiritual world. He had no idea about the ETs. And he was here on vacation, staying at my home. And I went to I asked him if he wanted a beer, which was a silly question. He said yes. I went to the fridge to get a beer. And I said to my ET guides, now will be a good time to show him a craft. So I went outside with the 2 beers. I put them down. I sat down. A craft appeared immediately, and it flew directly behind our home. It moved quickly in such a speed and direction, it could only be interpreted as a craft. And it was only about 500 or 600 feet away. He saw it. He was absolutely amazed by it. There were 4 of us sat there, his wife, myself, and my wife. And from that one encounter, it changed his whole perspective. And I suspect I agree with you, Melisa, in relation to it's very difficult to change people's minds and opinions once they're set by their lifelong education, as it were, to change. But on this occasion, my friend Mash, his opinion changed overnight. Now he talks about the ETs. He does his own research. And then he took some photographs of the full moon, and there were some orbs there. Well, orbs can be the ETs opening up a portal to watchers and seers. They were then including him. So, and now we have conversations about the ETs and the UFO. So it's we are moving forward. And I know this lady Rebecca from the Find the Light. She said that she saw darkness, and the darkness was the rioting, the fires. But then beyond that, she saw the light. The darkness stopped, the fires, the fighting, and that's what my ETs tell me. There will be a period of upheaval, and we will come out the other side. They didn't say the light, but I would use her words and move forward through the dark to the light. So I think very exciting times ahead for humanity, for our species. So,
yeah. Well, never mind me just dropping rocks over here. I was fiddling with an amethyst crystal, and it jumped out of my hand and fell onto the floor. So if you heard a noise, that would be me playing with my rocks. So anyway, well, I love the fact that your friend did change his mind. I unfortunately have not seen too much of that. I have a friend who is very much of the Christian faith, and despite my numerous personal stories I've shared, still doesn't believe, still doesn't, just even though it's firsthand, account information, eyewitness from myself, still doesn't believe whatsoever in paranormal, UFOs, or ETs, just doesn't believe in it whatsoever. I still love her, but she'll never ever agree or change her mind on that. I just don't think she will. And then of course, the whole pandemic thing. I mean, people are being given facts that it's 0.0002% that you will die from coronavirus, but yet 99% of the people walk around with face masks, even though the facts are in their face. They don't want to believe it. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe some people might be easily, switched, but I think a lot of people, I don't know. They just don't want to believe. They don't want to admit that they've believed wrongly, that they've been foolish. Maybe, I don't know. I think it just is a case by case thing. Sometimes when you have a personal experience, it can definitely wake up, your mindset and change your thought process. Oftentimes, if you're listening to someone's firsthand account, for whatever reason, they're still going to be skeptical. I don't know. It's yet to be seen. Let's put it that way. That's going to be something we're going to have to stay tuned for, because I think it's going to be a little bit tricky. but hopefully over time that will change. Now, you mentioned that, you think that we're going to have to go through some more darkness in order to get to the light. I have heard, and I forget who I heard this from, but maybe Edgar, maybe you can remember. I heard somebody say that December 21st, something magnificent was going to happen. Some sort of a, light-provoking awakening. Something wonderful is supposed to happen. I have no idea what that is, but have any of you heard anything like that? Can't hear you, Barry. We've lost Barry.
I'm sorry. I myself have not heard anything like that at all. You hear so many different things. We've heard, there are a lot of psychic input that comes in and a lot of different things. And, it's kind of like wait and see. There are certain times that I feel the energy shift here, and it's not that everybody else is going to feel that or some things that happen. But when it does shift, you can definitely tell it. Right now, there is a negative energy that's out here that I feel very strongly. And I hope that December 21st, if that's the time of it, that it will definitely change, So.
It kind of reminds me, you remember when a few years ago when they had the Mayan calendar prediction and they were like, the world's going to end and all that, remember? And they had like a specific date. Edgar, you know a lot about the Mayan calendar. We were a little bit off in our calculations, weren't we?
Yeah, by a number of years, almost like 15, 16 years off. And yes, that was a psychic medium that was talking about that. And that's the winter solstice, that there's supposed to be a major shift in the energy fields.
Yeah, that's what she said. She said December 21st. Boy, I hope they're right. But I've got to say, some of the stuff that I'm seeing actually just yesterday on the news from different places around the world, the Canadian Prime Minister or President or whatever, he was like, this is like the second wave, blah, blah, blah. Thanksgiving's going to be ruined. Maybe there's hope for Christmas. I'm like, geez, that's like Doomsday 101. I don't know. There's so much propaganda, so much fear mongering going on that I'm hoping that, if the ET, here's a question, and I've wondered about this for a while. If the ETs communicate telepathically, which we know they do, is there not a way to change globally mindsets telepathically? Could the ETs do something like that? Who wants to answer that question?
I think it's important that we raise consciousness. That's a part of the idea that we were looking at doing. Is it not? That's the key factor. The more people you get together that can raise those frequencies and bring that up will be better.
Right. But could the ETs not telepathically put messages into all of our minds globally and say, hey guys, time to wake up? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Well, in my opinion of that, you're dealing with so many different varieties of aliens with different agendas, just like we have here. There are people here that have a different agenda, and when we're talking about that agenda, it all drives by different parts. So ET has different agendas also. We can be talking to one while another version is trying to do something else. I do believe, my personal opinion, and it's my own thought, that there is a battle going on, that there is the ET that is here working with the government, and there is also a better ET that is out here that wanted to give and offer spiritual guidance to us. And when they come, they abduct people and give them uploads and take them into that kind of factor. But they also do it at great risk to themselves because of the fact that lately when we're talking about UFO cases and everything else, you see that there's something else is coming. The military comes right afterwards, not for that kind of purpose where there might be another UFO. We've heard of battles that it seems like one is chasing away another one. So if there is a good alien and a bad alien, they're definitely at work, and they're in a war. So it's good versus evil. You know, when you get to the bottom of the hole, and that rabbit hole is so deep, it turns into be one thing versus another. And it's good versus evil every time.
Right.
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Barry. And I've come to that conclusion. They haven't given me that information. But if you weigh up all the information we've been given, and we do have the ETs that are in direct contact with our governments that they've kept hidden, and then we have the other ETs that are contacting the people. And Melisa asked the question, why don't they give people telepathic communications? Well, I had an example of that yesterday with my brother. He's never had any communication whatsoever. We've obviously had conversations about it. He now understands consciousness and shared consciousness in relation to how everything is connected. But yesterday I was speaking to him, and he was given a download by the ET. He said, Kevin, he asked me a question, and then he was given the answer. And it was about Donald Trump, when we hadn't touched on the subject at that moment in time. And he just relayed this information. And I said to him, where did you get that information from? And he said, he thought about it. He says, I don't know. He said, it just came into my head in an instant. I wasn't thinking about it. It was just came in. I said, oh, that's a download. And he knew about downloads because I explained them to him. And we'd had a conversation with a small group. My brother's a member of a book club in Holland. And I was invited to join in there. And they speak, they're learning about consciousness. In fact, they just read the book by Deepak Chopra, and they were discussing that particular book. And we moved further than that. We got into downloads and things like that, shared consciousness. So he was aware. And it was like a button being turned on, or a light being turned on. So, yeah, in answer to your question, Melisa, brother, and I'm sure that's part of the communication as well, then they will be doing it with others. And they did tell me they will be contacting more individuals. And I suspect my brother Michael is an example of that now. So it will be interesting to see if he receives any more downloads. But once he realised, he was just fascinated by it. And one of the group that we meet with on a regular basis, our Michael shared his story about the butterfly, which we had on this show a few weeks ago. And he's been trying to connect with the butterflies with his daughter. And last week he told us he was able to do it. He meditated, he went outside, there were some butterflies there, and he was able to walk up to them, and he said, tickle their wings, and they didn't fly off. He said, what an amazing feeling to connect through consciousness through the butterflies. But that's a very simplistic step in understanding consciousness itself. And once you realize that, and the power and presence of meditation, telepathic communication, then we as a species will move forward.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I guess I just want to fast track. I want this planet to heal, and I want humanity to get out of all of this hatred and negative state that it's in, and move to a loving and peaceful. So I'm like, is there not like a drive-through that we could get there a lot faster, that the ETs just kind of telepathically change everybody's mindset? Boy, that would be so nice, instead of waiting generations. Heck, we may not even be alive when it finally happens, It may be 50 to 100 years from now, who knows? But yeah, I mean, it would be, I don't know, I just wanted to ask the question because I'm sure there's people watching that had that question, and that's my role, I think, is I'm trying to think of what are people thinking of as they're watching our show. Are they sitting there going, well, gosh, if the ETs are so much more advanced, which they are, is there not a way that they could just help us out at the snap of a finger? Yeah, that would be kind of cool if they could, but then again, you have to play into, like Barry was saying, all the different ET races, and there's so many different agendas. It's like, well, which one would win? And then you can also argue, well, now you're going to be under their control. It does kind of become another battle, I guess you could say. And I'm in agreement with you, Barry. I think there's definitely some sort of a battle going on, maybe a battle for control of Earth, or maybe it's even a lot bigger than that, because I've read a lot of books, I've seen a lot of theories out there, and I think there's a shred of truth to all of that. And if in fact there is a battle going on for Earth right now, is it the good trying to take over the bad? Because a lot of people, and I'm kind of one of them, I kind of tend to think that we're almost a prison planet where, we're just being controlled and manipulated so much that I wonder if some good ETs are trying to overcome that. I don't know. Just going to put it out there. What do you guys think?
Well,
I think that the good
Dogon
ETs
have
are actually
talked about
trying
this.
to,
Talked about this like 3 or 4 episodes back.
We talked about the video earlier. She talks about contracts and everything. I mentioned it earlier.
Yep.
The first time that we had a meeting with them, with an alien, it was a very human-like race, and they wanted to talk about spiritual awakening and give you that offering to be able to bring us to that. I think what's come back is full circle that these aliens have has a group, if you call it a council or whatever you would like to call it, work all together. And there's this other thing that works in this other direction that we consider to be evil. But I think that they've come back and they are trying to instill the spirituality of people. I find it very interesting. You talked about your friend who was reading very religious, and thinking that she'll never change her mind. Well, as you, just like anything, like Christ said, it's one that will hear. So when you start to hear these things and you start to develop these things, then this is the things that will come out for other people to be able to listen to, and to be able to make their own judgments. But I think that they are actually raising consciousness. I think they're raising the frequencies of people out here to be able to talk about it, because some of us don't buy all the social conditioning. Do you ever notice that? And I think we're all sitting around here with a group of abductees or somebody who has had ET encounters. And when we do that, our belief system is different. It's a little bit on the different side because of the fact that we don't buy what we're told. Inside of us, we beat a different clock. We know that, okay, here's this information is. And I think it's from them downloading it to us and protecting us, and maybe reducing our frequencies to the point where we are not, our frequencies kind of bounce off the other frequency, the lower frequency. So it doesn't affect us so
it's
much.
threatening. I think it's threatening to some people. I think that's part of the problem. I mean, not only are we a threat to the establishment because we're not buying into it, but I think we're a threat to those that don't understand it. The greatest reason that people fear things is because they have no knowledge of it. So when you lack knowledge, then that equals fear. And how better to control people than the use of fear? I think that's part of the problem too, Barry, is that, I've heard here lately that anytime we talk about universal consciousness, we're putting red flags out there on the internet, and we want to be probably squashed because we are trying to help people raise their vibration. And when we raise our vibration, we become less controllable.
Well, I think it all comes down to the part, and you've heard me say it a lot, and I think everybody else has heard it, that it is definitely about frequencies. Plus, frequencies cause vibration. Vibration causes energy. And I think it all comes down to that point. And I think that if we expel that part of the problem and we continue to do that, I think the world will be a lot better place to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think
you
that those
can
are the
tell,
things that happen.
I have this saying that everything and everyone are one of two things. They're either a drain or a radiator.
Right.
When you're an energy drain, you suck the life out of everybody. When you're a radiator, you bring light and heat and warmth to everyone. So if you really think about it, everything and everyone is either a drain or a radiator. And so I try to eliminate the drains and attract the radiators.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
You want to try to
So-
keep all that. You don't need it to going down the drain.
Exactly.
So-
I don't want liquid plumber. I don't want to have to use that.
No, yeah,
You know?
exactly. And that's a great analogy. Well, we just call them energy vampires to me. I mean, they've always been that way. They just suck you dry. And, you know, when I got to tell you something, you know, my religious beliefs and all the whole 9 yards go together. But I do believe that if people all get together in a positive manner, we can move mountains and we can do these things and change the world and change people's thoughts. It doesn't take 100,000 of them. I mean, it takes a few people getting together and moving forward and to change things. And right now we need some change. We need some positive attitude. So I hope that everyone hears this, can go towards that area. Nothing worse than a bunch of drains, if you will.
Right?
Pulling all of us down into the same thing because it takes away from us too. It pulls all of our energies, you know.
Oh, gosh. Kevin, I see you smiling down there. But isn't it true, though? I mean, it's either a drain or a radiator. Just saying.
That's fact, so yeah. And again, I agree with Barry. It's all about frequency. And like I say, the more radiators they have, the warmer we are, the more conducive we are to one another. And, you know, I have friends who are negative and they drain you. They always look at the negative side of everything. And they have other friends that are so positive and they just radiate that glow of consciousness, really shared consciousness. And it raises everybody's vibrational frequency when we get together. You mentioned briefly about control. And obviously, you know that I'm from the UK. And just recently, they've changed their rules and regulations again in relation to the COVID pandemic. Now they've got restrictions. The pubs have to close. We're a nation of pubs in the UK. The pubs have to close at 10 o'clock. Because my understanding is now the virus comes out at 10 o'clock and then attacks people. So as long as you're in the pub before 10 o'clock and then it closes early, normally they close at 11, then you'll be okay. You can't have more than 6 people gathering in one place at one time. If you organise that, then you're liable to a fine of £10,000, restricting that. But I know that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, said last week or this week that on Christmas Day, they're going to relent on that and allow families to get together just for Christmas Day, though. And then it'll be the control concept again of only 6 people gathering together. So they've got these curfews now, closing all the pubs at 10 o'clock. They open at 11 o'clock in the morning and normally close at 11 o'clock at night. So they're closing that hour earlier. So you can sit in the pub all day for, say, 11 hours if you want, or 10 hours if you want. But you can't stay for that last hour now. We have to close the pub because of the virus. Well, that's part of the control system, part of the fear. And those of us who have cognitive thought, we work these things out. And again, my friend I talked about Max again, he's been following the COVID and he's believed most of the stuff that the government has told us over a period of time. But now that light bulb's come on and he thinks, this is not right, there's something not right here. So the longer these things go on, the more people will be awakened. And that's the key, being awakened to who we really are as a species, as humanity. So there might be a positive side to all this control and fear. It will awaken people. And if they're awakened, then they become like us, and then they'll do their own research and mix with like-minded people. So I think it's a positive side of the fear factor that the governments are trying to control us as individuals, and I don't think it's working.
Right. Well, I was chuckling there for a minute because I'm thinking, well, do people turn into pumpkins after the 11 o'clock? I mean, you know, does it magically become more contagious after 11? I don't know. You know, it's kind of silly to me. What's the mindset? Like, what are you getting from like your friends and family over there, Kevin? I mean, are people upset about that? I mean, 6 people? You can't, obviously there's no weddings going on in the UK, which means there's probably going to be a dip in the baby boom. Population's probably going to go down, or maybe not if everybody's stuck in their house. I don't know. Depends on how you look at that. But if there's no weddings, no birthday parties, no nothing going on, because 6 people, that's not very many people. What's everybody saying over there? I mean, are they upset? Are they okay with it? Do they not care? Or
Well, I'm seeing now a shift in my friends who have followed the narrative all the time and believed it, to move into the fact that, well, this is getting ridiculous now, and the more they implement these draconian rules and regulations, so-called to protect us, then even the people who are not open-minded, they start thinking about it. And so I'm seeing a shift in some of my friends now, some that wouldn't go out, say, I'm not going out at all. And now they're out. And I joke with them. I say, you're going out without a mask? Oh my God, what are you doing? 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks, 10 weeks ago, they were locked down in their homes and they were frightened, they were terrified. Now they're venturing out. So it just depends on what percentage that is of the population. And this is the UK. I know it's happening in other places. I think in Canada they've implemented some more rules and regulations. And I think they've made it mandatory now to have these vaccinations. So they've just passed a new bill. So it's happening all around us. Happening all around us.
Well, I mean, Edgar, I'm going to ask you this question because I know what your opinion is, but I see people, and of course, it's pretty well known that I am not in support of face masks. But yet, I have to ask this question. When I do see people out and about and they have little babies and like little young toddlers of like 2 years old, they don't have face masks on them, which, by the way, good. I'm glad you don't, because their cognitive development will be ruined if you put it on. But I'm just curious, are those parents thinking that the babies are immune to it? I mean, because if they're wearing face masks, are they thinking that the kids are immune to it? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Well, part of it has to do with at least to listen to the pediatrician and not put a mask on, because it does reduce the oxygen content flow to the brain. But I was just sitting here thinking about the way the people are treating this, and like in the collective consciousness, they're starting to realize that, just like in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when Richard Dreyfuss told his friend, get rid of the mask, and they got off the helicopter and they wound up witnessing the intergalactic ship coming into that base that they had built up around the Devil's Tower. And so this is much like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they used the sleeping gas and all the animals and stuff to make it look like it was anthrax, when it was only a sleeping gas. And they realized that they actually called their bluff, and they were fine. Then they tried gassing them, and they didn't succeed in knocking them out, because they were able to hide from the gas. And this is where we're at now.
That's a great example. I actually forgot about that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I can't believe I didn't think of it. But yeah, you're right. I love that. That's a prime example of when, fear was actually implemented in regards to a UFO landing. And that's interesting. Well, we only have about 2 minutes here left, guys. So let's go around and have everybody give a closing thought real quick. Barry, I'm going to start with you. Barry? Barry is in the Twilight Zone. All right. Barry has been taken over, folks. Oh my gosh. All right, Kevin, I'll go to you. What's your final thought?
Final thought will be, I'm very positive for the future. I love what this lady Rebecca said from Find the Light. So, yeah, very positive for the future. Moving forward, the ETs are guiding us and contacting people, and there are many of us speaking out now. So, and as they say, it will come from the people. Very positive for the future.
Very nice. Barry, we can't hear you, sweetie, so if you can do something with your volume, I'm not sure. All right, Edgar, I'm going to go to you. What's your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are that we as a human race need to wake up and smell the coffee, smell the roses, and look at nature and not destroy any more of it, because we're losing our contact with nature by the destruction and not getting out amongst nature and recharging our systems.
Very
We
nice.
have to have
Barry,
that
I'm gonna
spiritual
try one more
connection.
time. Can you say something, Barry? Because I lost you. Barry, do you have audio?
Well,
You do. Okay.
I am barely hearing everybody, but I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Thank you all for having us on there today. I think that there's a lot of things for people to look at and think about, and I hope that the spiritual energy does lift, and we do take consideration into what is going on in this world and making it a better place and raising the frequencies and raising everybody's knowledge to do it. If you're looking for information about what we look for Project Cigna back in 1953, look for Project Plato. Give you some information about some of the treaties and some of the other stuff. So hopefully it'll be worth your while to take a look at it.
Absolutely. And of course, you guys can always grab a copy of our book, Tap into Universal Energy. We talk a lot about that. That's written by Kevin, Edgar, and myself. And we talk about universal consciousness. Well, as I say every week, I want all of you to change what you know, and you're going to change where you go. I'm your host, Melisa Kennedy. Until next week, keep looking up.